I love the perspective of the universe that science gives me. I just love that I'm made of stardust. I know that matter's made from atoms, and atoms come from the Big Bang. But I also know deeply in my heart that life is made from stories. The stories we tell ourselves and others. And these stories are shaped and reshaped by our relationships with other people, places, cultures, and the society as a whole we live in. Meaning is created when a common network of these stories is shared amongst people. And who in life doesn't want to have meaning and purpose? Today, I'd like to tell you my story, part of it. The other day I was in the preoperative waiting room with a man. Let me give you his name, Jack, a manly name. Jack and I were talking before the operation about what was going to happen and how he felt. Jack leant forward. He stopped. I thought, I really need to stop and listen. I looked at him, and I really looked at him, and I realised he was looking past me. He was looking into some blue horizon. He started to lean forward further and began to weep. We don't like it when men weep. It makes us feel unhappy, or maybe that's just how I feel. Tears seem to come from a great distance and they seem to come quickly. But I realised that Jack was not alone. I was with him. We sat in silence, and the silence spoke volumes. We hesitatingly talked to each other. We slowly regained our composure, and we left that room, and we walked into the operating theatre. There I was greeted and welcomed by my family of colleagues. They felt that we had taken the time we needed to get to where we needed to be. Surgery is a strange mixture of risks and benefits. It's an absolute joy when it goes well. The flesh parts, the blood vessels proudly display themselves, nerves flash like neon lights. A cancer's brooding presence is easily cast aside, and the recovery is just all smiles. Good news is always easy to give. It was the French surgeon René Lariche who said that each surgeon carries with him a small graveyard where from time to time he goes to pray, a place of bitterness and regret, a place where he tries to find explanations for his failures. And we all have a place like that. And it makes me think of my small graveyard where I go to and where Jack's tears took me to. Did I cry enough when my mother died? How did I feel? However, I sit there in my reflection and always leave aspiring to be a better person. My youth was difficult. I don't know if I felt happy in my family, but I only really felt my first home when I went to university. University, for me, was a place of enlightenment, a place where certainty was given by logical, rational thought, where the promises of understanding the universe would be displayed. For me, university was that palace. One of the great things about the Enlightenment was the bell-shaped curve. The bell-shaped curve gives us an understanding of the world. It takes our present and our past and formulates a curve that allows us to see into the future. Often in our society, science is seen as a repository of an enormous amount of cultural authority in what is truth. However, scientists disagree on what the questions are, let alone the answers, and sometimes it's hard to see the way out. Now, I was in London, late 1990s, in the autumn. I went to see a famous speaker talk about a new operation that I thought I would capture and bring back to New Zealand. As he talked, he explained how his amazing new operation, the only thing wrong with it was patients did worse. He couldn't understand that. He thought the problem was with the questions. and not the operation. It made me think and question of where we're going and why we're there. I now look at the bell-shaped curve after 25 years of examining life in many different ways. I think of it as a mountain that we're climbing up. I think of it as a mountain that we're running down. Sometimes I think for some of us it's a prison in which we're trapped. For me, it seems like an observatory in which I can stand and look at the world. When I look out into the world, I see that it's a time of the Anthropocene, the time when people influence, change, and control the world. A time where there's so much complexity, so much chaos, that individually we seem to have been depowered and lose our ability to change anything. Yet, I think in the shadows, there is a subtle counter-revolution taking place, where places like here and now are allowing us as individuals to come together under banners of what a good life could be. A place where we are bringing together our discussions on the topics such as gender, racism, deforestation, and climate warming. A place where people are talking about principles such as ideas, projects, visions. A place where what changes things is compassion towards power. A place where the topics are power, equality, and kindness. I was thinking the other day about this talk and what I'd talk about, and I realised that for me, one day my life just changed as I was walking through the streets of Melbourne. There, I used to pass a homeless man, and every day I used to stop, empty my pockets, and give him what change I had. Then one day he was gone and all his meagre possessions just disappeared. However, on the sidewalk was a little sign. It was said homeless. I picked it up and I turned it over, and on the back was written, "I am still human." For me, that was another moment where I thought, everyone is still human, why can't we see that? In my encounters with life, I've come across many different things, and one of the things is some points of view that I'd like to share. There's a writer called Brené Brown who talks about vulnerability. Her teachings and writings on vulnerability encompass three other great topics as courage, connection, and authenticity. They change the whole vision of vulnerability from one of being a weakness, but actually a sign of our greatest courage. There's another writer who combines two words, and that is voluptuous surrender. And for me, voluptuous surrender is a beautiful term. Voluptuous surrender is letting go of yourself in the presence of where you are. It's being at one with the world and being able to deal with complexity, to live with fear, uncertainty, and doubt. As Benjamin said, to be completely lost is to be completely found. Voluptuous surrender allows us to be present. The last almost comment comes from another writer called Krista Tippett, who talks about generous listening. Generous listening is when we're present, fully present with someone. And when we're fully present with someone, we listen with our heart and our brain. Generous listening allows us to see the other person and for the other person to see us. All of these things offer us a promise and also a hope. The promise that we can see others and that others can actually see us and connect. The last thing really of this thing that binds us all together is my deepest, most cherished thought, which I must admit I'm shy to share, because it seems unmanly. However, I want to be vulnerable. I want to have some voluptuous surrender. I ask you to listen generously when I tell you my vision is loving kindness. I believe if we can bring all of these things together, we can form connections and we can change the world. For me, loving kindness is like the sun. I know when it's present. I know that it's through its presence I see everything else, and everywhere I see its presence. Maya Angelou said that people will always forget what you say, people will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you make them feel. I'd like you to think back to my story of Jack. How much of my life now did I put forward into his life? That is my story. Take from it what you will. Thank you.